The war horns sounded before dawn, not once, not twice. 7 long blasts echoed across the Blackthorne kingdom, a signal no citizen had heard in nearly 20 years. Somewhere high in the Frost Peak Mountains, the last surviving heir to the throne had been found. Somewhere else, an army of rebels was already climbing toward the same destination. If Alpha King Ronan Blackthorne failed to reach his son before sunset, the kingdom would lose its future before father and child ever spoke a single word. Ronan tightened his grip around the worn silver pendant hanging beneath his armor. It was the only thing his infant son had left behind on the night he disappeared. For 2 decades, every trail had ended in silence. Every witness had vanished. Every rumor had dissolved into mountain mist. Until yesterday. A royal scout had returned carrying impossible news. The missing prince is alive. Those 4 words changed the kingdom forever. Snow whipped across the mountain pass as Ronan urged his horse higher toward the hidden valley where the mountain wolves lived, beyond the reach of royal law. Behind him rode the finest warriors in the realm. Ahead of him waited the son he had searched for half his life, but another force was moving just as quickly. Rebels, assassins, and powerful alphas eager to seize the heir before the crown could reclaim him. If you enjoy emotional werewolf romance filled with hidden heirs, unforgettable family reunions, powerful alpha kings, and impossible choices between love and duty, stay until the very end. Tonight, one young wolf will force an entire kingdom to redefine what it truly means to lead. Far above the clouds, a lone hunter calmly drew his bow beside a mountain trail, completely unaware that he was the lost prince every kingdom was searching for. Morning always arrived quietly in Frost Peak. The sun rarely climbed above the jagged mountain cliffs before the village had already awakened. Thin ribbons of smoke curled from stone chimneys, while the scent of fresh bread drifted through the cold air. Wolves carried firewood. Children hauled buckets of water together. Hunters returned from the forest long before most kingdoms would have begun their day. Among them walked Caelan Ashwood. No royal cloak rested upon his shoulders. No guards cleared a path before him. He carried a bundle of split logs across one shoulder and greeted every villager by name before delivering the wood to Widow Mara, whose injured leg had prevented her from gathering fuel for nearly 2 winters. "You should have asked for help sooner," Caelan said with a warm smile. The elderly woman laughed. "You always arrive before I can." He stacked the wood neatly beside her door. "You have enough for another week. And what about your own cabin?" "I still have 2 strong hands." She watched him disappear down the narrow path. "One day," she whispered to herself, "those hands will carry more than firewood." Caelan never heard her. He believed he was nothing more than another mountain wolf. That belief shaped every choice he made. The mountain wolves valued service above status. Their leader, Elder Rowan Greyhide, often reminded the younger generation of the same lesson. A title tells people who you are. Your actions tell them whether they should follow. Every child memorized those words before learning the ancient laws of the packs. Caelan had lived by them his entire life. After delivering the firewood, he crossed the frozen stream toward the village clinic. Inside, Lyra Stonebrook carefully wrapped fresh herbs around the arm of a young hunter who had fallen from a cliff the previous afternoon. She looked up and smiled. "You are late. I stopped to help Widow Mara. I knew you would." He placed a basket filled with mountain berries on the table. "For your medicines." "You picked these before sunrise?" "I was already awake." "You never stop working," he shrugged. "Someone always needs something." Lyra watched him quietly. That simple answer explained everything about the man he had become. The people of Frost Peak trusted him without question. Not because he demanded respect, because he earned it every single day. When the clinic emptied, they walked together through the village. Children ran toward Caelan almost immediately. "You teach us tracking today?" After lunch. "Can we practice archery too?" "If your chores are finished," a chorus of cheerful promises followed. Lyra laughed. "They listen to you more than they listen to Elder Rowan. They know I will make them finish their chores first. And that is exactly why they listen." The mountain path eventually opened onto a broad overlook where the entire valley stretched beneath them. Snow-covered forests reached toward distant peaks. Crystal rivers shimmered below. No castles, no walls, no towers, only homes built by families who depended upon one another to survive. Caelan leaned against a weathered pine. "I have always wondered something." "What is that?" Lyra asked. "Why do kings live so far away from ordinary wolves?" She considered the question carefully. "Perhaps they forget what ordinary life feels like." "I hope I never do," she smiled gently. "I do not think you could." Unknown to Caelan, those words carried more truth than either of them realized. Every evening, Elder Rowan gathered the younger wolves around the great fire. Stories were considered as important as hunting lessons. Some tales celebrated courage, others warned against pride, but one story was told only once each winter, the tale of the Shepherd King. Long ago, according to legend, a ruler disguised himself as a shepherd to understand the lives of his people. Only after serving them did he become worthy of leading them. Most listeners believed it was simply an old fable. Elder Rowan did not. He looked directly at Caelan while telling it. "The greatest crown," the old wolf said softly, "belongs to the one who never asks for it." Caelan lowered his eyes. "I do not understand why you always look at me when you tell that story." The elder smiled. "Perhaps one day you will." That answer only deepened the mystery. For years, Elder Rowan had guarded a secret hidden beneath the floorboards of his cabin. Inside an ancient wooden chest rested a faded royal blanket embroidered with the crest of Blackthorne Kingdom. Beside it lay a silver pendant shaped like a wolf's head. The matching half had disappeared with the child's father more than 20 years earlier. The elder had promised never to reveal the truth until destiny arrived on its own. He believed that day was approaching. Late that afternoon, the villagers gathered to repair a damaged bridge after melting ice weakened its supports. No one assigned the work. Everyone simply appeared. Caelan climbed onto the highest beam, despite the dangerous wind. Below him, children carried rope while older hunters secured heavy timber into place. A frightened boy froze halfway across the unfinished bridge. "I cannot move." The wooden plank shook beneath his feet. Caelan immediately crawled toward him. "You are doing well." "I am scared." "So am I." The boy blinked. "You are?" "Being brave does not mean you stop feeling fear. It means you keep moving anyway." Slowly, one careful step at a time, the child reached him. Together they crossed safely. The villagers applauded. Caelan looked embarrassed by the attention. "It was nothing." Elder Rowan quietly shook his head. "No." It was leadership. As evening settled across the valley, Lyra found Caelan repairing his bow outside his cabin. "You could have fallen today." "I did not." "You never think about yourself." "I do." "When?" "After everyone else is safe." She smiled sadly. "Sometimes I think the mountains shaped your heart differently than the rest of us." Before he could answer, an unfamiliar howl echoed from the northern ridge. Not one of the mountain wolves. A scout sprinted into the village moments later. "Horses." The villagers exchanged uneasy glances. "No trader would climb this high before winter ends," one hunter said. The scout nodded. They carry royal banners. Silence swept across the gathering. Royal visitors never came to Frost Peak, not in living memory. Elder Rowan slowly closed his eyes. So, they have finally found him, Caelan frowned. Found who? The elder looked toward the darkening horizon. Instead of answering, he reached into his cloak and removed the old silver pendant he had protected for 2 decades. He held it tightly in his weathered hands. The past, he whispered, has come to claim its future. Far below the mountain trail, Alpha King Ronan Blackthorne and his royal escort emerged through the swirling snow. Only a few miles remained between a father and the son he had spent 20 years searching to find. Neither of them knew that before another sunrise, the future of the kingdom would no longer depend upon blood alone. It would depend upon the courage to redefine what it truly meant to deserve a crown. The royal banners appeared with the sunrise, not fluttering triumphantly, hesitantly, as though even the mountain wind questioned whether a king truly belonged among wolves who had never asked for one. The people of Frost Peak gathered in silence. Hunters stood beside healers, children hid behind their parents. No one reached for the weapon. No one bowed, they simply watched. At the front of the village stood Elder Rowan, beside him, Caelan Ashwood. He wore the same weathered leather jacket he had worn while repairing the bridge the previous evening. His hands still carried faint scratches from hauling timber. He looked nothing like a prince. He looked exactly like the man the village trusted. Alpha King Ronan slowly dismounted. For a long moment, he could not move. 20 years of searching, 20 years of unanswered prayers, 20 years of imagining this moment 1,000 different ways. None of them prepared him for reality. The young man standing before him had his mother's quiet eyes, his own determined posture, the same scar above his right eyebrow from childhood. A scar Ronan remembered placing there accidentally while teaching a laughing toddler to walk across the palace gardens. His breath caught. "It really is you." Caelan frowned politely. "I believe you have mistaken me for someone else." The words struck Ronan harder than any battlefield wound. Of course he did. Why would he know his father, to him? The Alpha King was only a stranger wearing expensive armor. Elder Rowan stepped forward. "There has been no mistake." The old wolf reached into his cloak. His weathered hands unfolded the faded royal blanket before the gathered villagers. Gasps spread through the crowd. Then he placed the ancient silver pendant into Caelan's hand. "You have carried half of your story your entire life," he looked toward Ronan. "The other half has finally arrived." Ronan slowly removed the pendant from beneath his own armor. The metal had become smooth after years of being held during sleepless nights. He extended his trembling hand. Without speaking, Caelan instinctively lifted his own pendant. The two broken halves drifted together. A faint silver glow surrounded them. The ancient enchantment awakened. The pieces joined perfectly. One complete wolf crest, the symbol of Blackthorne's royal bloodline. A quiet murmur spread across the village. Lyra stared in disbelief. The stories were true. Caelan remained frozen. His heartbeat became strangely uneven. Memories he had never understood flickered across his mind. A warm voice singing beside a fireplace, strong hands lifting him toward the stars. Golden palace windows, a wolf carved into white stone. They vanished as quickly as they appeared. He looked toward Ronan. "Who are you?" Ronan's voice nearly failed him. "I am Ronan Blackthorne," he swallowed hard, and his eyes filled with tears he no longer cared to hide. "I am your father." Silence. Even the birds stopped singing. Caelan looked down at the restored pendant, then back at the king, His entire world shifted beneath his feet. He searched desperately for words. I remember nothing. You do not have to. Ronan took one careful step forward. I remembered enough for both of us. Electric warmth suddenly raced through both of them, not the ancient mate bond that united destined lovers, but the unmistakable awakening of the first alpha blood. Golden light shimmered beneath their skin. Matching wolf-shaped markings briefly appeared along their forearms. Every wolf present instinctively lowered their head, not from fear, from recognition. The royal bloodline had answered. Captain Cedric, commander of the Royal Guard, whispered softly. The ancient line still lives, for one beautiful heartbeat. Father and son simply looked at one another, years of separation, years of grief. Years of unanswered questions. None of them could be solved in a single morning. Ronan slowly smiled. I came to bring you home. Caelan remained silent. The villagers watched anxiously. Finally, he asked one question. Which home? The king blinked. The palace. Caelan looked around Frostpeak. Children were repairing fishing nets. Hunters were unloading supplies. Lyra was helping an elderly woman carry water. Elder Rowan smiled proudly at the younger generation working together. Caelan turned back toward Ronan. My home is here. Ronan's smile slowly faded. You are the crown prince. I am a mountain hunter. You were born to rule. I was raised to serve. The words echoed across the valley. Lord Magnus Hollow stepped forward from the royal procession. His expensive robes contrasted sharply with the villagers' simple clothing. This conversation has gone on long enough. He pointed directly at Caelan. The heir belongs to the crown. Several mountain wolves instinctively stepped closer to Caelan. Lyra moved beside him. He belongs to no one. Magnus ignored her. The laws are clear. Caelan met the nobleman's cold stare. So am I. I will not abandon these people, Magnus scoffed. You would reject a throne? I would reject any throne that asks me to forget the people who taught me how to become a man. The villagers fell completely silent. Ronan studied his son carefully, not with disappointment, with growing admiration. Every answer Caelan gave revealed exactly why the mountain wolves respected him. Power had never shaped him. Character had. Ronan spoke quietly. If you refuse, the kingdom may fall into civil war. Caelan answered just as softly. If the kingdom depends upon one unwilling man, then the kingdom has a far greater problem than succession. Those words lingered in the cold mountain air. Even Captain Cedric lowered his eyes, because deep inside, he knew the young man was right. Before Ronan could respond, a hawk circled overhead. 3 sharp cries echoed across the valley. Elder Rowan's expression darkened immediately. Scouts! Another mountain wolf sprinted toward the village. He could barely breathe. Crimson Fang warriors, how many? Hundreds! And he looked directly at Caelan. They are carrying banners that read. He struggled to finish the sentence. Bring us the prince. Dead or alive? Ronan's eyes hardened instantly. He stepped in front of his son without hesitation. Steel rang as the royal guard drew their swords. Across the snowy ridges, dark banners began appearing one after another. The rebellion had arrived, and for the first time since finding his son, Alpha King, Ronan realized the greatest battle ahead would not be convincing Caelan to accept the throne. It would be keeping him alive long enough to choose his own future. The first arrow struck the royal banner. It did not hit a soldier. It did not seek a king. It tore through the Blackthorne crest and pinned the shattered flag against an ancient pine. The message was unmistakable. The crown had already been judged. A second later, the mountain exploded with war cries. Hundreds of Crimson Fang warriors poured over the snowy ridges like a living avalanche. Dark armor, red cloaks, spears raised. Behind them marched dozens of mercenary alphas carrying heavy iron shields. Farther back, silent figures dressed entirely in ash-gray leather moved between the trees. The Ash Claw Brotherhood, professional killers. They had not come to win a battle. They had come to eliminate one man. Caelan, Captain Cedric, drew his sword. "Royal Guard! Protect the prince!" The soldiers immediately formed a defensive circle. Mountain wolves stood beside them without waiting for orders. Hunters who had never fought beside royal warriors locked shields together as though they had trained for years. No one asked who belonged to which pack, not anymore. At the front of the advancing army walked High Alpha Darius Bloodfang. His crimson cloak whipped violently behind him. His enormous wolf pelt rested across one shoulder. His smile carried absolute confidence. So, the lost prince truly exists. His cold eyes settled on Caelan. "You have caused quite an inconvenience." Caelan stepped forward before anyone could stop him. "I do not know you. You do not need to. You only need to die." The words echoed through the valley. Ronan moved instantly. He placed himself directly between Darius and his son. "If you want him, you face me first." Darius laughed. "I was hoping you would say that." Another figure slowly emerged from the royal procession. Lord Magnus Hollow. His expression remained perfectly calm despite the army surrounding them. Captain Cedric frowned. "My lord, you should return to the king's position." Magnus smiled faintly. "I already have." He suddenly raised one hand. Hidden crossbowmen appeared behind the royal guard, not enemy soldiers, royal soldiers, men secretly loyal to Magnus. Dozens of crossbows swung toward Ronan, toward Cedric, toward Caelan. The mountain wolves stared in disbelief. Cedric's voice became ice. "You betrayed the crown," Magnus answered without emotion. "I preserved it. You invited rebels into the kingdom. I invited order. You hired assassins. I removed uncertainty." Ronan slowly turned toward his longtime advisor. "For 20 years, I trusted you." Magnus met his gaze without remorse. "You trusted your heart. I trusted the wrong man." "No," Magnus replied. "You loved the wrong child." The valley fell silent. Even Darius looked surprised by the cruelty of the words. Caelan stared at Magnus. "You never even knew me." "I know enough. You were raised among common wolves. You think like them. You care about them. You would poison royal blood forever," Caelan answered quietly. "If caring about ordinary wolves weakens a king, perhaps kings have forgotten why they exist." Several royal guards lowered their eyes. The words reached deeper than any sword. Darius became impatient. Enough speeches. He transformed. Bones cracked, muscles expanded. Dark crimson fur erupted across his body. Within seconds, an enormous wolf towered above the battlefield. His roar shook loose snow from the mountain cliffs. Hundreds of Crimson Fang warriors transformed beside him. The valley became a sea of wolves. Captain Cedric lifted his blade. "Hold the line!" The first collision came like thunder. Steel crashed against claws. Snow exploded beneath charging wolves. Mountain hunters fought with axes and bows. Royal guards defended families instead of territory. Everywhere, the battle became chaos. An assassin slipped between the fighting, then another, then 5 more. Their target never changed. Caelan Lyra spotted the movement first. "Behind you!" A black-cloaked killer lunged from the trees. Caelan turned just in time to block the poisoned dagger with his hunting knife. Metal screamed. The blade shattered. Another assassin attacked from the opposite side. Before Caelan could react, Ronan intercepted him. One punch, The masked killer flew across the frozen ground. 3 more rushed forward together. Ronan did not draw his sword. He simply stepped into them. 1 strike, 2, 3. Each attacker collapsed unconscious before touching the snow. Darius watched with narrowed eyes. So the stories are true. The first alpha blood still lives, Ronan slowly inhaled. The air around him changed. The temperature dropped. Golden light spread beneath his skin. Ancient silver markings ignited across both arms. Every wolf present felt the invisible pressure. Alpha dominance, not forced, not shouted, declared. The mountain itself seemed to recognize its rightful guardian. Pine trees bent beneath an unseen wind. Frozen rivers trembled. Clouds above the valley spiraled outward. Every ordinary wolf instinctively lowered their head. Even several Crimson Fang warriors took an unconscious step backward. Darius growled. "I will not kneel." Ronan's voice rolled across the battlefield like distant thunder. "I did not command you to. I commanded you to stop threatening innocent people." The pressure intensified. Several assassins collapsed where they stood. Crossbows slipped from trembling hands. Magnus staggered backward. This power, it should not exist. Ronan looked toward him. It exists to protect. "You used yours to manipulate," Magnus screamed. "Kill the prince!" The hidden royal traitors fired. A storm of bolts filled the sky. Everything happened in a single heartbeat. Mountain children stood directly behind Caelan. There was no time to run, no time to hide. Caelan made his choice. Instead of protecting himself, he threw his own body in front of the children. Ronan's eyes widened. "No!" Golden energy erupted from his outstretched hand. The air itself bent. Every bolt stopped in mid-flight. Hundreds of steel projectiles hung motionless between heaven and earth. Silence, complete silence. Even the wind disappeared. The impossible scene reflected in every frightened eye. With one slow movement, Ronan closed his fist. Every bolt turned into silver dust. A collective gasp swept across both armies. Darius whispered, "He bent reality." "No," Elder Rowan answered softly. "He bent destiny." Caelan looked at his father in stunned silence. "You saved all of us." Ronan never looked away from his son. A king's first duty is never the throne. It is the people standing behind him. Those words settled deep inside Caelan's heart. For the first time, he understood that the man before him was not simply a ruler desperate to reclaim an heir. He was a father willing to sacrifice everything for his child. Across the battlefield, Magnus slowly reached beneath his cloak. No one noticed the small crystal hidden in his hand. No one except Lyra, her face drained of color. "The bloodstone," she barely whispered. "If he breaks it, the mountain will collapse." Every eye turned toward the glowing crimson crystal. The true battle had only just begun. The bloodstone shattered. A single crack echoed across the valley. Then the mountain answered. The ground lurched violently beneath every warrior. Ancient cliffs groaned as massive sheets of ice broke free from the towering peaks above. Boulders tumbled toward the battlefield, carrying centuries of frozen earth with them. Ice spread through both armies. "Run! Get the children! The mountain is collapsing!" Only one man remained perfectly still. Alpha King Ronan Blackthorne. His glowing eyes never left Lord Magnus Hollow. "You would bury your own people, simply to protect your power." Magnus clutched the broken fragments of the bloodstone. "If I cannot control the future, no one will." The avalanche roared down the mountainside. Caelan looked toward the terrified villagers. Without hesitation, he sprinted toward them. "Move to the eastern ridge! Leave everything behind!" Children grabbed younger children. Hunters carried the elderly. Royal guards abandoned perfect military formations and began lifting fallen villagers from the snow. No one waited for orders. They followed Caelan. Darius Bloodfang watched in disbelief. The prince. He is saving common wolves before saving himself, one of his own warriors whispered. Our Alpha would never do that. Those words struck Darius harder than any blade. Ronan raised both hands. Golden light burst upward into the storm-dark sky. The ancient Alpha power surrounding him expanded across the valley like a living shield. The first wave of falling boulders struck the invisible barrier. Instead of crushing the village, they split apart into harmless fragments that scattered across the frozen slopes. Captain Cedric stared in awe. He is holding back the mountain. Blood slowly trickled from the corner of Ronan's mouth. The power demanded a terrible price. Still, he did not lower his hands, not while innocent lives remained in danger. Across the battlefield, Darius roared and charged. If the king falls, the shield falls with him. The enormous Crimson Fang Alpha lunged through the swirling snow. His claws gleamed like sharpened obsidian. Ronan could not defend himself. Both hands remained raised, sustaining the barrier protecting hundreds of lives. Caelan saw the attack. He did not think. He ran. He intercepted Darius just before the Alpha reached his father. The impact threw both men across the frozen ground. Darius recovered first. You cannot defeat me, boy. I do not have to. Caelan rose slowly. I only have to keep you away from my family. For the first time, he had called Ronan family. The king heard it. His weary eyes briefly closed. 20 years of guilt eased by a single word. Darius attacked again, faster, harder. His massive claws slashed through the air. Caelan blocked one strike, dodged another. The third tore across his shoulder, leaving a deep crimson wound. He stumbled. Blood soaked the snow beneath his boots. Lyra cried out, Caelan! He refused to fall. Instead, he remembered Elder Rowan's oldest lesson. A leader stands where others cannot. Darius laughed. You bleed like everyone else. Yes, Caelan answered calmly, but I stand for more than myself. The Crimson Alpha charged one final time. At that exact moment, the last child reached safety. Captain Cedric looked toward the king. Everyone is clear! Ronan slowly lowered his hands. The golden barrier dissolved. The avalanche had passed. The village still stood. The Alpha King was free. He walked toward Darius with terrifying calm. No roar, no fury, only certainty. Darius attacked first. Ronan caught the enormous wolf by the throat. The force of the collision shattered the ice beneath their feet. The Crimson Alpha struggled wildly. He could not move. You built your strength through fear. Ronan's voice remained quiet. I built mine through responsibility. With one powerful motion, he threw Darius across the battlefield. The Alpha crashed into the broken remains of the bloodstone altar. His transformation dissolved instantly. He collapsed onto both knees, broken, defeated. I surrender. Ronan looked at Captain Cedric. Take him alive. He will answer before every pack. Royal guards surrounded the fallen warlord. No one resisted. The battle was over. Only Magnus remained. The former royal advisor attempted to flee into the forest. He had almost reached the tree line when Elder Rowan stepped into his path. The old wolf carried no weapon, only his walking staff. You spent your life chasing power, Magnus sneered. Move aside. You never understood leadership. I understand survival. No, the elder answered gently. You only understood control. Royal guards quietly placed enchanted silver restraints around Magnus's wrists. He did not struggle. There was nowhere left to run. As silence settled across the valley, Ronan finally turned toward Caelan. His son remained standing, barely. Blood covered his torn jacket. His breathing had become uneven. The deep wound across his shoulder continued to bleed. Lyra pressed healing herbs against the injury. He will recover. She looked at the king. But he should never have needed this wound. Ronan walked forward slowly. Every step felt heavier than the last. He stopped only a few feet from his son. The mighty Alpha King looked at the young man who had risked everything to protect strangers. Then, before the entire kingdom, Ronan Blackthorne dropped to both knees, not because he had been defeated, because his heart demanded it. His voice trembled. "I asked you to inherit my throne. Before I earned the right to be your father." Caelan stared at him in stunned silence. "I was absent when you needed me. I failed to protect you. I cannot recover the years we lost." Tears filled Ronan's eyes. "But if you allow me, I will spend the rest of my life deserving the chance to stand beside you." The valley remained completely silent. Even Darius lowered his head. Caelan slowly stepped forward. He reached down and gently lifted his father back onto his feet. "You never stopped searching for me," Ronan nodded. "Never. I cannot give you back 20 years. A faint smile appeared on Caelan's face. "But I can give you tomorrow." Father and son embraced for the first time since destiny had torn them apart. Around them, hardened warriors quietly wiped tears from their faces. Lyra smiled through her own tears. Elder Rowan closed his eyes in peaceful gratitude. Captain Cedric looked toward the assembled packs. "This," he whispered softly, "is how kingdoms are healed." Ronan turned toward the prisoners. His voice carried across the valley. "Darius Bloodfang shall stand public trial before every surviving Alpha for crimes against the innocent." He then faced Magnus. "And Lord Magnus Hollow, you believed noble blood alone deserved to rule. You will spend the remainder of your life rebuilding every frontier village your greed helped neglect. You will serve those you once believed beneath you." Magnus lowered his head. For the first time in decades, he felt the weight of true justice. As the evening sun broke through the storm clouds, its warm light fell upon father and son standing together. The kingdom had not been saved by a throne. It had been saved by a choice, the choice to place compassion before power. Spring returned to Frost Peak. The scars of war remained, but they no longer defined the valley. Children laughed once again along the mountain trails. Farmers rebuilt damaged homes beside royal guards who had chosen to stay and help. Hunters and nobles worked side by side without asking whose blood was more valuable. For the first time in generations, the kingdom felt like one family. At the Great Moon Circle, every Alpha Pack gathered beneath the ancient white oaks. No army surrounded the assembly, only witnesses. Alpha King Ronan Blackthorne stepped forward carrying the crown of the first king. For centuries, every ruler had inherited it through blood. Today would be different. He looked toward Caelan. "My son, you were born with the right to wear this crown." He paused. "But that is not why I offer it to you." The valley became silent. "I offer it because you taught an old king that leadership is earned through service." Ronan held out the ancient crown. Caelan did not reach for it immediately. Instead, he turned toward the thousands of wolves gathered around the circle. "I will accept this responsibility, only if you believe I have earned your trust." No law required an answer, no tradition demanded one. Yet the Alphas lowered their heads, then the warriors, then the elders. Finally, every ordinary wolf standing in the valley did the same, not out of fear, out of respect. Only then did Caelan accept the crown. At that moment, Ronan addressed the Great Council one final time. "From this day forward, No heir shall inherit the throne through blood alone. Every future ruler must first serve the people. They must earn the trust of every pack before wearing this crown. The ancient succession laws changed forever. The kingdom erupted into applause. Lyra watched quietly from beside Elder Rowan. She smiled as Caelan found her in the crowd. He walked toward her instead of climbing immediately onto the royal platform. "You stayed beside me when I was only a hunter." He gently took her hand. "I hope you will stay beside me now," she smiled through joyful tears. "I never cared whether you were a hunter or a prince. I only cared about the man you chose to become." Together they climbed the stone steps, not above the people, but among them. Years later, storytellers would remember many victories from the reign of King Caelan Blackthorne. They would remember the rebellion that ended, the laws that changed, the peace that united every pack. But above all, they remembered the day a prince refused a throne until he had earned it. If this story moved you, tell us in the comments. Do you think Caelan was right to refuse the throne at first? Or should he have accepted his royal duty immediately? Your answer may inspire a wonderful discussion with other listeners. If you enjoy emotional werewolf romance filled with hidden heirs, powerful alpha kings, unforgettable family reunions, and stories where compassion changes destiny, please like this video, share it with someone who loves heartfelt fantasy, and subscribe for more unforgettable adventures. Until our next journey, remember that the greatest leaders are not those who stand above their people. They are the ones willing to stand beside them.